I asked you point blank, and you said, listen,
don't fucking do that.
In your life, you're going to have a lot of great ideas. I just don't know if this one's going to stick.
Please and thank you. This is our life.
It's marriage.
All right.
You just nod and say yes. I'm like, shut up.
How rude you bring that up right now.
Happy wife, happy life is the best thing the world's ever seen.
You reckon? I can be a little bit too sensitive. You can be a little bit too blunt.
Unsolicited advice is the worst thing the world has ever seen.
Let's build a fucking company together. Oh, it's just us talking about work and life and personal issues. I'm like, yeah, the most chaotic podcast we've ever done. All right, welcome back to another episode of First Rounds on Me. I'm Hannah Feminella and this is my husband Joe, and we are here to unpack the horrors and the wonders of the dating world. As a reminder, we air our episodes every Monday morning so that we can keep you company on your way to work. Today, we're foregoing a guest because we're going to have a little one-on-one about a subject that is very near and dear to our heart and hits very close to home, which is working professionally with your romantic partner. We'll explore the genuine pros and cons, share our insights and advice for those considering going into business with their partner, and discuss how to establish boundaries, communicate effectively, define roles and responsibilities, and ultimately support each other in every aspect of life. Okay, so...
You should move the mic closer to you. And also, thanks for letting me know what the podcast was about, because I didn't know about the podcast topic until you were driving over.
To literally,
which is great for the topic itself.
I think so too. I think it will lend us quite well to it. So I think to start here, even through like all of the research that I did prior to the podcast, or the people that that we talk to that also work with their partner, I think there's like two schools of thought. Some people are like relish in the idea of having like a professional relationship as well as a romantic relationship with their partner. And then some people are like, nah, that's completely out of the comfort zone. But I think the common factor and the common question that gets asked is, why do couples go into business with each other and how do they make it work? So in my mind, there's like 4 or 5 clear kind of like topics that we can talk about today. But I think number one I want to talk about is boundaries, because I feel like that's been quite a big topic that we've discussed in our own personal relationships. And so I think to begin with, because we live in a tiny studio apartment in Beverly Hills, and we also work with each other, the importance of establishing like work and personal time. How do you think that we do with that?
Honestly?
Yeah.
Right now, probably not the best.
Why?
Because we are in the thick of the startup, and when you're in a startup, there's only so many people you trust. So that's one of the benefits of working with someone you're married to, is you fully trust them. But those few people that do have your full trust, you rely on them a lot, i.e. you, i.e. Joey, family.
Well, actually, no, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we should actually probably start by explaining like the dynamic between us and like what goes on, because people clearly know that there's a dating app attached to this podcast, and that you are our founder and CEO. But do you want to talk a little bit about how I decided to come on board?
Yeah, and I think one of the intro points you made was if you decide to go into a business with your partner or not. And I think in our case, it happened organically because of a few reasons, but also when you're married to somebody who believes in what you're doing and also is a huge asset in themselves, it's very easy to say, well, do you want to be part of this with me? And you did, which was exciting. And then because you're so good at what you do, we start saying, oh, you're a co-founder. And, you know, in the beginning, I remember you saying you felt uncomfortable kind of being more hands-on when it being my company. And I tried to explain to you, listen, in the beginning, it was my company. Now it really is our company because you're so invested. You sacrifice just as much as I do. So, yeah, I think it just happened naturally because we do have a strong foundation of communication, understanding, and also the level of trust in each other and believing what we're doing. So
I completely agree. I think it was like a really natural progression. I remember in the initial stages, I was very hesitant to be a part of the company because I really saw it as your company. I was like, it's great.
Also, you didn't believe in the company.
That's not true. And stop spreading that rumor. That's not true at all.
I met you,
what did I say?
No. When I met you, and you already knew what I was trying to do in the infancy stages, the first rounds on me. And one day,
black and white when the logo was black.
And one day, I asked you point blank if you thought it was a good idea, put you on the spot, and you said, listen, I think in your life you're going to have a lot of great ideas. I just don't know if this one's going to stick. And I said, wow.
And why did I say that? Because the dating app market is incredibly saturated. That's what I started off with. And I said, listen, there's a lot of dating apps out there. I think the idea that you have is really good, but will it be the greatest idea you ever have? I don't know. Only time will tell.
How do you feel now?
That's not, I obviously seeing it come to life and seeing the reactions from not only the people that we work with, but also the general public, and like people are just like, oh my God, that's such a good idea. It reinforces the fact that there is that gap in the market for it. You know what I mean? Especially like we talk about this all the time, but like post-pandemic, people like wanting to get back into real life and be in front of each other just like we are right now. And also the inception of our relationship, and we were that like accidental proof of concept. I think that really threw a lot of weight behind the idea. And obviously now the fact that we're in 12 cities, we're thinking about expanding internationally, like it definitely holds a lot more weight than it did when you were just telling me about this idea that you had. But yeah, I was initially kind of trepidous to step into it for a multitude of different reasons. I was like, this is your company. And I thought it was really important that we had individual goals and individual things that we were working towards. But obviously as we got engaged and then got married, and I saw the level of blood, sweat and tears, time and effort that you were putting into it, I kind of thought to myself, all right, well, either I go and do my own thing, which would be great, or as you said earlier, I've got assets that you can use, and vice versa. Why not pour all of this time and energy into a common goal? So here we are. But going back to what we were saying before is like establishing clear boundaries. I have been a very big proponent of this, I would say more so than you have, and correct me if I'm wrong, of ensuring the fact that there is a hard line in the sand of like times when I'm your wife versus times when you can talk to me about business and we can talk about business back and forth, correct?
Yeah, you try and have the hard line, but even you, I would say, initiate the mess up, because when you're passionate about something and it's on your mind, there is no, okay, it's 8:30 now. I don't think about work or talk about work, especially when the person that you live with works with you, and you're both the most passionate about the project. Because if it was working hours, you want to bounce the ideas off of that person anyway, which would be your partner.
Yeah.
If it's off hours and you have this great idea, usually in a normal world, you wait till the next day when you're at work, or you don't want to interrupt your business partner. And that's when the boundaries happen. But because we live together and the idea pops up, I'm immediately going to talk about it. And then the boundaries are blurred. And I think that is the startup mentality. And I think that it says a lot more about our relationship foundation, because if we didn't have a really strong foundation, listen, business partners argue, husband and wife, they argue, people argue, but are you arguing for the right reasons or the wrong reasons? When we argue, it's about passions of life, passions of the business, how we push each other, how we make each other grow. And those are tough conversations, and you're going to argue. And
it's almost like constructive arguing.
Yeah. And it is what it is. And you both know at the end of the day that whether you're fighting for your relationship or you're fighting for your business, you're both pulling at each other's strings for a good cause. And I think once you have that understanding and that foundation, it's a lot easier. We're in the heat of the moment, we're there. And then 5 minutes later, it's like, okay.
I couldn't agree more. But there have been times where I'm like, for everybody out there, like I put in this arbitrary rule really because it doesn't really get adhered to that much. But I'll be like, first of all, it was 8 p.m. I was like, you cannot talk to me about first rounds of meat after 8 p.m.
I think it was 6 the first time.
No, it was 8 because I remember I gave you a little bit of lenience. I was like, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., do not talk to me about it. This is our time to be husband and wife. This is the time that we get to connect with each other. And then I quickly realized that wasn't enough time for Joe as a founder and CEO. So I was like, all right, 11 p.m. 11 p.m. to 8 a.m., do not talk to me about the app. Let's just try our hardest to like enjoy each other. And then we try our hardest on like date nights not to talk about it. But again, to your point, it's very difficult when I still don't see myself as a co-founder. You are like the founder and CEO of the company. You're right, I do sacrifice just as much, sometimes maybe even a little bit more in terms of like personal. But I am your business partner in the sense that like this is our life. This is what we live and breathe every single day. This is where we're working towards a common goal. And like you said, we're both using our own skills and assets to achieve that.
Yeah, I mean, whatever term you want to use, co-founder, founding team,
I'm co-founder when we're out at events because it just rolls off the tongue a lot better. But I think that like internally within the team and internally in myself, I still see you as the sole kind of like founder and CEO.
Yeah. I mean, founding team.
Founding team. I like that a lot. I also think that just in terms of like boundaries, I think we've developed a really good sense of, even though we live together and we work together, like we have different workspaces. Like you love going to Soho House and that's where you thrive, whereas I thrive best wearing sweatpants and typing on my computer kind of in bed or at our little desk in our apartment.
Yeah, and I also realized that you're busy because you do workout classes in the morning instead of work.
You always want me to go to workout classes and now you're getting fucking frustrated that I'm going to. It's only on a Wednesday and it's because I like the class that they have.
See, like that's an interesting personal business crossover that happened when I found out that you couldn't attend a call at 10:30 in the morning because you had a workout class.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's the only day.
Because as your husband, it's like, whatever. And as your business partner, I was like, wow.
When have I ever said no to a meeting? And I've always, you are the one that's
why didn't the times work though?
Because I have a workout class.
How many?
2. Back to back. But one's 15 minutes and another one's 45 minutes. So it's basically an hour worth of working out. Mind you, you go for hikes at like 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So don't talk to me about that. How rude you bring that up right now.
Well, it's an interesting point of a business relationship crossover.
Yeah, but
you got a little upset that I brought it up when it was 75% a joke.
I knew it
and
was
25% just like, wow, okay, interesting.
All right, but I also work on the weekends and you don't. You sit down and watch sports all day. So
I don't work on the weekends. Interesting.
Is there not a good chunk of time where you sit down and you go on a hike and then you go and watch fucking Knicks play or something like that and I'm sitting there working? Is there not?
That's fair.
Tell the people. Thank you very much. But yeah, going back to my initial point of the fact that we have different workspaces, and I think that helps a lot in terms of like not being on top of each other so much. We can communicate, obviously. We communicate on a lot of different platforms, but I think that it gives us that sense of like husband and wife when you get home, like, hello, darling, like, how was your day? And we still get that sense of normalcy within a marriage. Would you agree?
Yeah, super important. And I think little things like that, creating some type of structure to, even if you're not with somebody for 5-8 hours, you miss them and you're wondering what they're doing. You're wondering how their day's going. So that catch-up time is really nice. When there were times where we would wake up, we would work in the same space, we would then eat, then go to sleep, and there was no separation. And it, you want to miss somebody a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Figure out, I can't wait to see them again.
Well, it's like distance makes the heart grow fonder, but I think it's like any good relationship, whether it be a marriage, whether it be a professional, whether it be a friendship, which we have all three, is you need that space apart from each other. You need it for your own mental sanity. Like it would be, I think we learned very quickly that being on top of each other all of the time was not good for our relationship.
Yeah.
How do you think that we ensure the fact that something negative that's happened within work doesn't affect our personal relationship? Like, how do you think we draw that line?
I think it starts with you. Your communication is really great. And I think,
Thanks.
We have so many examples to pull off of. The other day, I chimed into your call with your team and kind of gave in my input, which in the moment seemed pretty normal. And you explained to me how that kind of stepped on your toes as the leader of that team. And I would say, it was 5 minutes of not even frustration, just conversation, like a real serious conversation.
I think it was just me setting that boundary with you because it's like, again, it's hard. You're the one that runs the company, right? So technically you can have your hand in any pot that you want. That's your company. But I was explaining to you that like it takes away from my contribution to it when you just step in and go, well, Hannah doesn't know what she's talking about, X, Y, and Z.
Right. And I think the communication part of that is also letting you know that it's not personal towards you. It's not, you asked, would you do that to somebody else in your team? And I said, yeah, of course. Like,
and I said, that's wild.
No, I mean, it's when the buck stops with me. If this fails, no, everybody else, you're going to go on your merry lives, bar you.
I was about to say not me.
But I'm the one that the investor invests in, like, to get the job done. Obviously, the team helps me, and the team's just as important as me. But if things don't happen, it's my fault. It's all my fault. So I am going to be chiming in. I am going to be butting in when I shouldn't be. But also, I do have to give you guys your space to operate. Like, that's what a good leader does, is say, like, you own and operate this. But again, we live together, so I'm sometimes in your conversations more, and I overhear things, and it's not personal. I just want to make sure things go the way that I want them to go.
I think you also feel like a little bit more leeway within jumping. I know you said that you would do that to every team member, but I don't think you would in the way of which you do. Just purely because I am your wife and because it is a more comfortable situation for you to be come in and be like, no, actually I want it done this way, and Hannah's not communicating it properly, even though hadn't even gotten to that stage yet.
Yeah, that I shouldn't have done.
No, but but I think that's the perfect example of like setting boundaries in a healthy relationship, of being like, I mean, I would do that if I was in another company, you know what I mean? And I felt like someone had stepped on my toes, or like perhaps stepped into a situation they didn't need to be like, listen, just so you know, like I'm capable of doing that. You got to give me an opportunity to, if after the fact you still feel like I didn't communicate it properly, of course, come in and have a chat about it. But like, I think that was a really good example of how I just try to come to you, be like, I'm still your wife, but right now I'm putting on like my business partner hat and being like, don't fucking do that, please, and thank you.
And you took the lead, and it was great.
All right, so kind of round out the section, how do you think that we keep the romance alive whilst still being business partners?
I think, like we always said, our old cliche is like we never stop dating each other, and I think understanding each other's love languages and all the little things you do for me, and it's obviously more wifely duties, and it makes me feel like I'm a husband who's really valued by their wife. And for me, it's kind of words of affirmation for you, and just little things to let you know, like, yeah, we got a busy life, we're working on something big, but at the end of the day, I'm still super attracted to you, I'm still dating you, I still think you're the best thing this world's ever seen. And I think just those little things, and I think no matter if you're in a business or not, you should always do that till the day that you die, and hopefully you're with your partner.
I agree. I think that I think to people out there, like, it's not going to be like traditionally like what you see in the movies or what you hear from your friends of like, we have date night this night and this is how this goes. Like, we kind of have to fit it into the little pockets here and there. Sometimes our date night is like 15 minutes where we just have that 15 minutes to be able to connect with each other and be intimate. But that is startup life. It's just trying to find those moments where we can fully be husband and wife, with still understanding that work is always going to be there. It's always going to be on the very outskirts of what we're doing.
Yeah, but I also just think it's being an adult, to be honest.
It's
like
true.
working with somebody or startup life, yes, that compounds it. But people our age have kids, so you don't really have time to connect with your husband or wife because you have kids.
It's true.
A whole lot of people, as they get older, they get comfortable in their own little situations, and they might have no kids and still not feel connected and not date. And it's just how you keep the spark alive.
I couldn't agree more, darling. All right, you're up.
I'm up. Okay, communication is key.
It is.
Yeah. Communication is undoubtedly the biggest must in any relationship, but especially when working with each other. So what are some of the techniques for clear and respectful communication, do you think?
I think the things that I've learned through our relationship is always coming at it with respect, like trying my hardest, even if I'm really frustrated, and this is just from my point of view, even if I'm really frustrated with you about something that's happened in work or something that's happened in our own personal life, coming at you with like a very high level of respect and trying my hardest to be as calm as possible. That I've noticed in the times that I haven't done that, how the conversation goes, it turns into an argument. It doesn't turn into something constructive. And then I kind of kick myself afterwards being like, fuck, I should have come at that like a little bit calmer, a little bit more respectful. So I think always leading with that is really important, but also understanding that the person that I'm arguing with or trying to have a conversation with is the man that I love. And so always coming at it with it, trying to be steeped in love. Like, you can still be angry at someone you love. It happens all of the time. But trying my hardest, and I still have to get a lot better at this because I know that there's moments where I don't do that. But that is always in the back of my mind. I'm just going, okay, come at with love, respect, and try to be calm. How about you?
Yeah, I think always reiterating that you're a team.
Mm.
One thing that we always spoke about was, would you say this to your friend? Because we take things out on the people closest to us the most because it's a safe space. So we lash out more, and we don't have a filter, I guess. And
it's very easy to get nasty.
Whoa.
You spill water on the couch?
With a friend, you kind of have that filter, and I think I would just try and make every personal relationship think about your partner as a friend and be like, would I say this to my friend? And if there is more that needs to be said, let me take a second to think about how to do it, like you said, respectfully. And your team, your partner wants the best for you. You want the best for them. And if they don't, you're not in a good relationship.
I
So
agree.
whether you're fighting or something, just know we're fighting because they want something better to come out of this for us and for me.
I like that a lot, don't I?
How do you think handling disagreements professionally without letting them affect your personal life and relationship and vice versa? Like, how does one not affect the other?
I mean, like I said, we don't really have that many professionally, but even if we do, it's still that same kind of vein of like trying to come at it with respect and love, and also understanding that to your point just then, it's just like no matter what argument we get into, it's always going to be a little bit deeper than it would be with anybody else that we're working with, purely because of who we are. And personally, there's so many ways we try our hardest to be better at arguing or having conversations, having constructive criticism thrown our way.
Yeah, this is a good one, actually. How do we balance being direct and honest while still being considerate of feelings? I think this is, especially when it comes to the podcast itself, because one thing that Hannah knows about me is I'm very honest in the best way. I obviously am not
Can be
an
very
asshole,
blunt sometimes.
but I'm just, I care. And why would I not say the truth? But how do you think we balance those?
I think it's an ever-evolving thing. I think I'm going to say this straight up. I can be a little bit too sensitive. You can be a little bit too blunt, right? And I think we're very much finding our way into the middle ground of fixing that. But there has definitely been times in the past where I will say, for instance, let's use the podcast as an example. I will do all of
because I have feedback about this podcast, the intro.
Okay. Amazing. Great. See? But that
We have to change our intro.
actually but that actually goes into exactly what I'm saying. So I will do all of the work for the podcast. I will do every inch of pre-production, which is a lot of work, especially when we have a guest. And then my dear husband will come in 5 minutes before we do the podcast and be like, I don't like that. I'm like, can you give me an example as to why you don't like it? No, I just don't like it. I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't help me. A, it makes me feel like all of the work, time and effort that I put into something is completely negated, and that makes me want to rip your fucking head off. B, you haven't done any of the work, and now you want to put in your input to it. Rude. C, you never go, hey, babe, what's this week's podcast about? Like literally on the way over here, I was explaining to you what the podcast was about, and you're like, oh, it's just us talking about work and life and personal issues. I'm like, yeah. Something that we'd been talking about for this last week, but it clearly went in one ear and out the other. So I'm trying to have a little bit more grace with you, understanding the amount of things that you have going on in your head. And obviously, like, the podcast is important, but it's not the most important thing on your mind on the day-to-day.
Yeah, right now it is when I'm here.
Yeah, I know. You have to literally...
But I also contradict myself and say the most random things to everybody on our team.
He really does. It's so frustrating.
I have a lot of ideas and a lot of visions.
Yeah, you do. And it's up to us to decipher them. I think that's, like, unfortunately and fortunately, that's the beautiful thing about being in your role, is that you get to kind of fucking word vomit all of these things out, and we've got to decipher what's actually doable and what's going to work.
It's all doable.
So you say. But yeah, I mean, I think I think the podcast is a perfect example of that, of the fact that you're just kind of like, let's do all these things, but I'm not going to give you any reasons as to why, and you've just got to kind of fucking figure it out. Or, no, I don't like that, just do it different. I'm like, oh, okay.
How could I be better on the podcast?
Do a little bit more research. Just to spend perhaps just like half an hour of your time.
See? Constructive criticism.
Exactly. Acquainting yourself with.
You're doing great on this podcast, by the way.
You reckon?
Yeah, very
Thanks,
good.
babe.
What are some specific techniques that we use to ensure respectful conversation?
I feel like we kind of already covered that, just in the sense of like, yeah, we already covered that. It's just making sure that we're coming at each other like a friend and like a lover, and making sure that we're always talking to each other with a level of respect, love, and care. Would you not agree?
I would agree.
Good, Joe.
Always agree.
Always agree?
Yeah, pick your battles.
What did they say? Happy wife, happy life?
Mm-hmm.
Do you subscribe to that adage?
Yes, it's the most true thing the world has ever seen.
I feel like you used to give me a lot of, I feel like you used to argue with me a lot more. And now I've noticed, especially within like, I would say like the last 6 months, even if on the off chance I'm being completely irrational, you're like, okay,
It's marriage.
all right.
You just nod and say yes. That's why whenever I say you're right, you don't even accept that anymore.
Well, no, because I know when you're being, I can tell, like, I read you like the back of my fucking hand. And if you're like, okay, you're right, I'm like, that's not fucking sincere. And we're going to continue to talk about this for the next 2 hours until you say you're right in a very sincere way.
You're always right.
Thanks, babe. All right, so this I think is something we kind of like touched on very briefly on our last one-on-one, which was like a year ago. But balancing the roles and responsibilities both at work and at home. I know for like it's quite an unpopular opinion in today's day and age, I think, but we subscribe to pretty traditional gender roles when it comes to at home, right? Like I'm very much the homemaker. Like I'm the one that does 95% of the cleaning and the cooking and
95? I like doing the dishes.
90.
It's very therapeutic for me.
Which is music to my ears. But for every time that you do the dishes, I do it 3 times. So that's great. Yes, so that's great and it's amazing.
No,
but like it is true. It is 100%
That's a little
true.
bit of
Okay,
a
well
lie.
I'm gonna put a fucking scoreboard above the sink and we can figure it out that way. But I think that something that could be really interesting for people is just like the way that how do you think that we've decided to dole out those responsibilities both at work and at home based on our own skills and strengths and preferences?
I think it started from our first date. You know, I would never tell a woman what she should do in a home or how she should work in a business. Like, who am I? But you liked being that homemaker, mother-esque type of person, and it just happened naturally from when we first started dating. You always cooked for me. I never really asked for it. So I think, you know, you fit in. A good partner is someone that lets you fit into the role that you want to fit into and then adjusts, you know, accordingly. You know, going back to work, you know that I'm going to be super on top of my team for those hours and you're going to be more on the creative side and making sure that everybody does what I want them to do in their respective departments. But home, I just try and help you as much as I can. You know, you put so much work and effort into making that a safe space for me, and it's clean and it's, you know, it's nice.
Smells good.
It's and like that means a lot to me when I come home from a really stressful day. But also, it's not on you to do 100% of that work, so I do have to help when I can. You know, whether it's folding clothes or doing the dishes, throwing out the garbage, walking the dog, all these things that, do I want to do them? No. Do I have the energy to do them? No. But it helps you a little bit.
I think you understand that it would be pretty unfair for me to have to take on all of that responsibility at home plus the responsibility that I already do with the app as well, which granted is not anywhere near the amount of responsibility that you take on with the app, but taking care of 2 people and making sure that they're clothed and fed and the house that we live in is operatable and nice and comfortable and safe, like you said. Like I always knew that dating a powerful man like yourself in the position of which you were in, it was going to fall on me a lot of the times to ensure the fact that you had a place where you could just be a sloth and you could be a vegetable when you needed to be, because so much of your brain is taken up each day, almost 24 hours a day, by the app, which is great. It's amazing. That's what's going to feed our future children. That's what's going to create this life where we can go and fucking sit on the beach for 6 months and not have to do anything, right, after working so hard. But I innately knew that was going to be a part of what I did. I think there was a moment like a year ago where I was like, I didn't fucking sign up to be a housewife. I'm so sorry. Like I was an international model for the longest time. I was earning my own money. I was living my life the way that I wanted to. And now it feels like I've kind of been backed into being a bit of a homemaker. Even though I am an innate carer, I do enjoy taking care of the person that I love. I just felt like it was a lot on top of the responsibilities that I kind of had with the app that were growing. But I just have to commend you because I think you've done an incredible job, in particular over this last year, of recognizing all of that responsibility can't be on her. Yes, I'm fucking exhausted from working an 18-hour day.
But you're making it seem like you're a housewife when you're actually
No, I'm not saying
a
I'm
super powerful businesswoman.
I am, but I am
Um,
also simultaneously a housewife. Like that's what all of
yeah.
those responsibilities that a quote unquote housewife does, a house person, should we say?
But also, life happens, and if when we met, also let's give context. You were going through visa issues, so you couldn't do your own thing.
So it couldn't work.
So the app started as just a way for you to do something and work because you were going crazy sitting on your hands for a year.
There's only so many times you can claim.
But also, like if you came to me a year ago, or maybe even today, and said, "I'm going to get paid $50 million a year to do this opportunity, this campaign, this shoot, this type of thing," I would then be like, "Okay, I'm going to take on the homemaker role because you're going to be the breadwinner for this period of time." And that's what we always talk about, like how much of the percentage of you giving in each area of the marriage is going to change over time.
100%.
Right now, I'm going to be the worker, and I'm going to make sure that all those things are being done. You're taking care of us on a home basis. But again, like I said, you're still very much involved on the business side and the creative side of what we're doing. It's not just, you're not just a housewife.
Well, I just don't think that I think that the best way to explain it is the fact that our work responsibilities aren't 50-50. So our home responsibilities shouldn't be 50-50. You know what I mean? Like you do 80% of the work with First Rounds and me in conjunction with us. I do a good 20%, and that 20% is like with my full fucking effort. But it would be rude of me to for you to come home and be like, well, you have to do 50% of it.
Could I ask you a question though?
Yeah.
Would you want me to clean the house and cook?
If you were good at it.
That's what I'm saying.
If you put fucking effort into it.
So I feel like I'll cook for you every night, but you'd probably just spit it out and not enjoy it.
Have you ever cooked for me?
I made you eggs a couple times.
No, I'm not
I've
talking about scrambled eggs.
Before.
Did you?
Yeah.
That had to be like one time. No, but like I said, I think that it would be very unfair to expect you to come back and do 50% of the work when in reality, like not only am I capable and I, for the most part, enjoy keeping a nice home and making sure that you're fed and clothed and happy. But just with the demand of what you have to do on a day-to-day basis, it would be ridiculous to come back and be like, well, you do X, Y, and Z now. Like that would exhaust you. You'd be that would be horrible for me to say. Well, strategies for supporting each other's roles without micromanaging is something that we kind of already went over in terms of the point that we made of you coming and stepping out. Have I ever come in and tried to like micromanage what you're doing?
Yeah, but that wouldn't go over well.
Have I ever given an opinion? Have I ever given an opinion where you were just like, that, shut the fuck up? Like,
I mean, your opinions are very much valued and they carry a lot of weight. The one thing I always tell people is like unsolicited advice. Advice and an opinion and a suggestion are very different things.
Yeah, you do hate unsolicited
So like
advice.
if you've had a suggestion or if you had an opinion, yeah, I would listen. And a lot of the times you have really great ones.
Thanks.
Unsolicited advice, especially from someone who at the time is not ingrained into the day-to-day as nobody's as much as me, it's just going to roll right off my back.
You're going to initially get really fucking angry.
Yeah, sometimes you'd be like, let me just tell you what I think about this. And I'm just like, that makes no sense. And why are you saying that?
I feel like that comes off the back of like other people's unsolicited advice as well. Like I feel like there's a couple of times where like you're making a big decision and you had other people in your life be like, well, you should do this. And then I was like the straw that broke the camel's back. I was like, well, I think you're like, shut the fuck up. And you would get so frustrated. And like in retrospect, I completely understand it. But in that moment, I was like,
yeah, I mean, unsolicited advice is the dumbest thing that happy wife, happy life is the best thing the world's ever seen. Unsolicited advice is the worst thing the world has ever seen.
Gonna clip it right there.
That's it.
All right. In what ways do you think balancing our roles at home and work improved our relationship?
I just think that we both know what we want together. You know, like the more you're with somebody, the less individualized it is. The more it's just a team. So it's like, we're rowing a boat together. Whatever paddle I have does my thing, yours does your thing. As long as that boat's going forward and the people on the boat are on the same page, it could be a mix of different things.
I really like that analogy.
Thank you.
That was a good one, babe.
supporting each other, mutual respect and trust.
Which are probably some of the bigger pillars of working and living with somebody.
Yes. The reason working with your partner whilst. See, I would never use the word whilst. That's how people know you wrote this.
Because you're an uneducated heathen.
I'm just going to not say anything. The reason working with your partner whilst challenging at times is so rewarding is because the trust you have in your spouse is greater than you are likely to have with any other business partner. Nobody wants to see you shine brighter or be better. Yeah, I mean, we touched on this a lot, going back to like, your spouse wants the best for you, and if your spouse is part of your business, they want the best for the business. So the unique trust between spouse and business. What do you think the trust foundation we have as husband and wife and the trust foundation we have as business partners?
I think that they feed off each other. I think the more that we trust each other, which obviously like we trust each other implicitly, but it continues to grow as our relationship grows because we've only been married for a year, then lends its hand to the trust that we have in terms of making decisions within the business. Like perhaps not in the nitty-gritty day-to-day, but like the bigger, larger decisions of like, should we open this? Should we move here? Should we go and do this all because of the app? It's that sometimes I have to really blindly go, okay, I may not understand what's happening here, but I've got to put my trust in the fact that Joe is looking at the bigger picture for the best for both of us and for our future family and all those kind of things. And it is very difficult sometimes, I'm not going to lie. But I think it just continues every decision that's made, every time that I do something really well within the app and show you that I'm incredibly capable, I think that puts a little bit more trust in me. And same way as at home when I do something that I say that I'm going to do, or if I handle a situation that perhaps you didn't have the time for or you couldn't, you go, okay, well now I trust her more, and it's vice versa. How about you?
I mean, I just trust you fully, to be honest. Whether it's business or in a relationship. I mean, in the relationship, you've kind of taught me how to be in a relationship, so your trust has always been 100% there. And in the business, I would say in the business, it's more giving you the confidence. Like I've always trusted you, but you need somebody to say like, listen, you need to trust yourself. You have the confidence. And I think that is a layer of trust in your partner.
I think I've always had the confidence. It's more so like...
I think like, well, the confidence of like not going out of your boundaries or not feeling like you're stepping on my toes or feeling like, getting thrown into an app startup.
That's run by your husband.
Yeah, but just being in any startup, it's chaotic. And if you've never done it before, I've never done it before this one. So everything is a learning curve and you need the confidence to be like, okay, this is okay.
Well, but I think what you don't understand, and I think this is like something that is perhaps something that we still need to understand about each other. I grew up in an incredibly chaotic way, and then I entered an industry that is perhaps one of the more chaotic, right? I'm used to chaos. Chaos is totally fun. I'm used to unpredictability. I'm used to things changing like that. Doesn't bother me in the slightest. It is such a different dynamic having your husband be the boss of that company. It's so because you don't want to come at it too strong because then everyone thinks that you're the bitchy bossy wife. You don't want to come at it too soft because then people think they can walk over the top of you or that you're just the wife. When we work with family, like people like Joey, I respect him a hell of a lot on a personal level and on a professional level. And so that's always a little bit tricky to be able to work that dynamic as well. And so it's not the confidence, it's just trying to find the speed of which I should be walking and running. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's like I'm a pretty confident human being for the most part. I lost a little bit of confidence as I left the industry and I went through this big shift and change within life and work. But yeah, the chaos I'm totally okay with. Look at our fucking life, mate. Our life is so chaotic.
Our relationship is so non-chaotic.
But I think that's purposeful. That's intentional, the fact that we've done that. We've tried our hardest to keep our personal life as... We're like ducks.
Go on.
You're intrigued? We're on the surface, everything is like super smooth, but underneath our fucking legs are going like this. And I think that's a great analogy for what we do in business and what we do in personal. Like, we're constantly working to make sure that our relationship is as loving and respectful and calm and beautiful as it possibly can be. And we're constantly working to make sure that this app reaches higher heights every single day. And on the surface, we look really calm, but underneath, we're working our fucking tushes off. Would you agree?
That was great.
We've both come up with really good analogies today.
A lot of them have to do with water, too. Ducks in the boat.
Didn't even put that together.
Right? Do you want to go? We're running. We got 10 minutes left.
10 minutes left? All right. Yeah,
I have a rapid fire for you, too.
Okay. Do you want to give it to me now before we give advice?
Yeah. I did prepare a little bit, but the rapid fire probably doesn't have
question
to do with Yankees are down 6-3, by the way. The score just
I
popped
fucking
up.
hate you so
Yeah, I don't know if it has much to do with the full context of working together, but I really thought these were great questions for rapid fire, and I thought that you'd be proud of me putting it together.
All right, hurry up. We want to get 10 minutes.
Okay. Rapid fire.
Okay.
What's your happiest memory of us?
Oh, that's so hard. I mean, obviously the day we got married is so beautiful, but the day that I got back from Australia, even though it was a little bit awkward because we haven't seen each other for 3 months, it was just the happiest because I knew that I was home.
Nice. What's the nicest thing I've ever done for you?
Through the surprise retirement party. I mean, you've done a lot of nice things for me, but that will like forever stick in my brain. That was the nicest thing I think that anybody's ever done for me.
Mm-hmm. What is something I do that makes you feel most appreciated?
Like you said, I'm a words of affirmation person. So when you like look me in the eyes and you're like, Hannah, I really appreciate you doing that. Something as simplistic as that really makes me, it's like you verbally saying it to me, really hits me straight in the heart. It gets me like all ushy and gushy because I'm like, okay, that means he truly does appreciate it.
Nice. What are 3 words that best describe us?
Weird. Loving. Gonna take over the fucking world.
It's not a word. It's a
I know.
sentence, but that's good.
Yeah, that's why I said it really quickly, so it all went into one word.
What are you looking for? What are you looking forward to most in our future?
Oh, so many things. Having a family, selling the fucking app. No, I'm joking. Just bearing, I think, all the fruits from every side of life. You know what I mean? Whether it be family and the personal side of it, or the app is just all of the hard work that we're putting in now. Watching that all come to fruition.
Nice. What simple moments with me do you love?
Going for walks is really nice. When we just like hold each other's hand, we just walk around. It's a beautiful LA day.
Last one. Where have you been all my life?
I was in Australia. I had to look at my watch to make sure. I was in Australia, and then I was all over Europe, and then I was in Asia, and then I was actually in New York the same time that you were in New York. We just never crossed paths.
I was not where you are. I was in Staten Island, far, far away.
Staten Island. All right, to finish up here, I think that the best way to kind of do this is a couple of advice questions for the lovely people out there who are thinking about getting into work with their partners. Are you looking at the sports right now?
No.
Oh my God.
I'm looking at some
I
notes.
was about to say.
I have notes.
Okay. What advice would we give to couples handling stress and burnout when working with each other?
Okay. So there's 3 things to help stress and burnout with couples in a relationship. 1 is a safe space. Physically, emotionally, and romantically. If you have a safe space, then you feel like you can communicate properly, whether it's work or in the relationship. 2, which again, both for work and relationship, is to challenge each other. If you're not challenging each other, you're probably in a complacent relationship, which is not a bad thing, but I personally think that we both want a partner who like really pushes us to be the best version of ourselves, which is challenging, could lead to some frustrating fights, but I think that's really good for business and for relationship.
Constructive arguments, let's call them that.
Constructive arguments. And then for the burnout, just like never stop dating. You know, I know there's times when you and I work weeks at a time without one day off, and then we're just like, okay, let's take 2 days to just get out of town and just reconnect. And I think that really helps both the work burnout and the relationship burnout.
I agree. I'm not going to answer that question, but I'm going to just give some general advice from the experiences that we've learned. And I'll start by saying that like working together most definitely isn't for everybody. It is not for the faint of heart. It is a pretty daunting thing to walk down knowing that you're going to basically be spending like 24/7 with this person. As we said earlier, like you can love somebody so much and still not want to spend 24 hours a day with them. But I think one of the things that we connected on from the very beginning, from our literal first date, was our why in life. You know, we wanted to start a family. We wanted to leave our mark on this world in a really beautiful and impactful way. And I think that you are kind of the one that created the opportunity to be able to do that. And I was like, I'm on fucking board. Wherever you're going, I'm going with you. You know what I mean? And you just had a very clear, defined way of doing it. We actually asked a few of our friends who work together, and I wanted to echo some of their thoughts, in particular our dear friend Felix, in saying that like every couple needs a project, right? They need something to be challenged by and to work towards. And we've just done it on a grander scale. We've gone, all right, like instead of a hobby or instead of a project that we can do together, we've gone, let's build a fucking company together. And I think it's a surefire way to learn the ins and outs of somebody so much quicker than you ever would. Like I know so much more about you now through watching you work than I think I ever would have in a quote unquote normal relationship. So I think that at the end of the day, to people who are embarking on a similar journey to us, is just to find the balance. Like balance is key when it comes to this type of thing. Understanding the balance that you need to take as individuals, as you need to take as a couple, and as you need to take as business partners. And always coming at it with just such a high level of love and respect.
Nice. Did you say that or Felix said that?
Well, I just kind of echoed a couple of his thoughts.
That was very beautiful by
That was
both
really
of you.
beautiful. Joint effort right there. All right, my darling. Well, I think this is enough time for today. But I've really enjoyed having this one-on-one with you. We should have more of this.
We should.